Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, where dreams aren't just imagined, they're built brick by brick, belief by belief. Hosted by Neal Oates Jr. and Robin Lewis, this show is your invitation to discover your amazing capabilities, invest in your growth, and unleash your potential in ways you've only dreamed of. Join Neal and Robin as they dive deep into stories, insights, and tools designed to inspire you to show up big, live intentionally, and give yourself away for the betterment of those around you. Get ready to rise to what you're truly worthy of. The Big Life starts now.
Well, welcome to the Big Life. We're so glad that you're here with us. My name is Robin Lewis, and I'm here with my co-host, Neal Oates Jr., otherwise known as Mr. World Renowned. Don't be average.
Be world renowned. Come on, sir.
Renowned. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. Well, I say I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be here with you. As you see, as it's still happening, it has been a fight for us to get here to this point today, sir.
Yeah, that's how things go, right? That's life and that's business. And so here we are, folks. We're so glad to be here with you. And Neal and I are practitioners like a lot of you, right? Meaning that we're in the middle of this as well. Today we have a topic for you that I find that people find it to be very interesting. A lot of people ask me about this. And we're talking about speaking so people listen. So we're talking about mastering your presentation. We're talking about communicating for influence.
Robin, right there, ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to hear what Robin just said. He said, speaking, so what? So people listen.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in just talking to talk, Robin, and actually speaking. And then you even mentioned communicating. So I'm looking forward to it. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, if you've heard the stories, right? Like most people would rather do anything else but speak in public, right? It's one of the number one fears in our society. In fact, I looked something up the other day. I love what Jerry Seinfeld said, Neal. Listen to this. Jerry Seinfeld said that most people would rather be in a casket than give the eulogy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. In other words, their fear is so high. Some people fear speaking in public more than they do fearing death. And he made light of it, and I'm making light of it today as well. But there is a lot of truth to that. And I relate to that. Neal, I wasn't this public speaker. I was very shy. I was that guy that, I could hardly, say out loud what I wanted to order from the dinner menu, much less, speak to influence people in public. That's kind of where I started, sir. I don't know about you. Share a little bit about your journey. You are a sought after public speaker today. Did it start there?
Well, I've always wanted to speak. I've always wanted to be the center of attention. The challenge I had was speaking so that people listen. And so that's why when you mentioned the idea and the title of this episode, that's what resonated with me so much, right? So it's one thing to want the attention, to want the likes and the shares and to be in the spotlight, but the purpose and the reason for doing it, what's the motivation behind it. And I know we're going to get into this, but for me being the messenger was the most important part of communication, or the presumption that communication was actually taking place. And so it took me a while to learn what real communication was, and that it wasn't about me and my ego and what I wanted, my name in the lights. So I've always wanted to and enjoyed the conversation, the talking, the speaking, the spotlight, the motivation behind it, and the outcome that the desired outcome is where my attention had to shift, sir.
Wow. I like that. So Neal, that's one of the things I think you and I bring on this show is that we have, so you have Robin, who was, like I was uncertain. I had a lot of self-doubt, and, I was just not even sure that what I would say would, like mean anything, or, like I was just so hesitant. And here you have Mr. Neal Oates Jr., like, you've wanted to share from way back when. And so I love that we bring that to our listeners today. I want to share some facts with our listeners. Actually, speaking and communicating, according to Harvard Business Review, the number one factor in promotion is communication. The number one factor, not your resume, not your results. According to Warren Buffett, so Warren Buffett, billionaire, philanthropist, Warren Buffett, he says that it's the fastest way to become 50% more valuable overnight. Gerald Ford said if he had it to go back over again, if he had to go back to college again, he would go and he would study how to write and how to speak. Communication. Indeed, I did a research on Indeed, and they list a page of the benefits that you gain by improving your communication skills. And it's so it's a game changer. The point is that it is a game changer. But what I think happens, Neal, is that a lot of people don't give it the time to develop, like it could and should, because of our fear, or because we have this myth that, there are people that are just born with the gift of gab, and maybe I'm not one of them, right?
Absolutely. And Robin, what I'm also saying is that at some point we have to, we always talk about taking ownership and accountability. Right now, we're just saying that we're lazy, right? And you can tell someone's commitment to a thing based on their desire and the practices and habits to improve it. But if you look at the greatest time to be alive, I believe is today. We have more technology, we have more things at our disposal, but we have just become lazy in our language. We've become lazy in our communication. We have abdicated some of the responsibility, like to our chat GPTs and our large language models and all of that. And so the idea or the need to communicate, the perceived need to communicate, I believe is lower than it has ever been. And now we do so much communication just via text and emojis and words that we forgot about the human side and the connection that takes place when real communication happens.
Yes, it's so true, because I agree with Neal. A lot of times what happens is we don't give it the opportunity, or we have this idea that we think you're either born with it or you're not. What we're here to tell you is that it's something that you can develop. And the people that you see that apparently are born with it, the people who make it look easy and so on, like Neal Oates Jr., it did not come easy. It was built. It was developed. But the point here is that if we take the time to do that, there's so much benefits that can come from it. If we don't, it's what I want you to hear. That can cost you a client. That can cost you a relationship. That can cost you not moving up in your company. That can cost you not being able to inspire others with that vision that you have. You with me? It can cost you a whole lot when you don't take the time to invest in that. And so we're going to share some things. And Neal, before I go on, anything to add?
Yeah, here's why you talking about what it could cost us and us being men of faith, right? I think we need to understand the power of communicating, right? The power of speaking. Everything that we know everything that we see started with the spoken word. And God said, let there be light, and there was light, right? And so, like, we talk about it from maybe business relationships, such a tangible thing. But we know that, right, God spoke worlds into existence. There's life and death in the tongue. And so I just really want, Robin mentioned we should practice our communication. I think it's a must. And I don't tell people what they have to do in life. But if we do not if we do not work on what I believe one of the greatest skills, greatest opportunities, greatest nuggets that we have in all of the world, if you don't work on your communication, I do believe that we will not live the big life that we're meant to live.
Yeah, that's the point. And I agree 100%. I can't tell you how many doors it's opened. I can't tell you how many conflicts we've been able to resolve because we were able to communicate in a way. I can't tell you the connections that have been made that have led to life-changing experiences in my life. And I think Neal, you're saying the same thing. So when we talk about communicating in this way now, being a powerful communicator, we're not just talking about the gift of gab, as I mentioned earlier on. We're talking about being able to articulate your thoughts clearly, right? We're talking about organizing your thoughts, first of all, right? So I think there's three things: organizing your thoughts and then articulating them in a clear manner, clear order, so that you can create buy-in, you can develop trust, so that you can inspire and lead others. And so we're those are things that you're actually you need to put together. And so Neal and I, as we share with you today, we're not here to impress you, we're here to impress upon you that the difference that this can make, and the fact is that you can develop that skill. So Neal, there's two secrets, and I want you to join in and share anything about these myth-busting secrets that we're going to share. One is that there are no natural-born speakers. What's your thought about that, Neal?
I 100% agree. And so if that were true, we would come out of the womb speaking instead of crying. I can only talk to people in ways that I can understand myself. Everyone has to learn the skill, the art, the beauty of this thing called speaking.
Exactly. And I agree with you 100%. The second secret that we want to share with you today is that preparation is everything. Preparation is everything. Neal and I have a mentor. In fact, he's the mentor over all of the coaches, speakers, and trainers in Maxwell Leadership Organization. Roddy Galbraith has trained over 60,000 speakers around this world. And he says, this is a quote from Roddy. He says, confidence is preparation. Everything else is beyond your control. So the idea here that we're sharing with you is that if you prepare, you will improve. If you try to wing it, people usually will find that out. They'll pick up on that very quickly. Your thoughts on that, Neal?
This is the one that really shows up because people want the benefit, they want the result of well-addressed presentation or great speaking, but we aren't willing to do the work beforehand. We aren't willing to prepare. We don't see the value in it. And therefore, we might have an opportunity. We might get up there and try to take advantage of the opportunity, but then we fail. And then we blame everything besides our lack of preparation, because preparation is in our control. But then here's what happens. What if we don't prepare well enough? Well, I don't get to point the finger at Robin. I've got to say I didn't prepare well enough, and then that requires me to hold myself accountable. And so not going too far, but if we prepare, we'll be confident. If we prepare, we will be ready. We will anticipate any challenges, and it really all comes down to the preparation.
Right on. And sir, let's talk about, what communication is all about now. I want to share three pillars that Aristotle identified some 2,000 years ago that I think are just as relevant today as they were back then in regards to powerful communication. And those three pillars are the messenger, so how you show up, the message, and so that's how you structure your ideas, and then the audience, that's how you connect with the audience. And Neal, you and I have already talked a little bit about this, but I would ask our listeners to consider which one of those three do you think is the most important in terms of being a powerful communicator? Is it the messenger, how you show up? Is it the message, how you structure your ideas, or is it how you connect with the audience?
So, Robin, right here, I want to jump in, and this is where I talked about me starting out early in my speaking career, probably at 5, 6, 7 years old. It was all about me, the messenger, right? And I had to learn later, after being around wise counsel, that it was not all about me. Now, Hear me, ladies and gentlemen. The messenger is important. The message is important. The audience is important. So you can't just throw any of them away. But as we continue this conversation, it's my hope that you will have your ears open, at least be willing to receive some of the information that we're going to share. But for me, Robin, it was the messenger, the messenger, the messenger.
Yeah. And, you know, let's face it, all three are important. I agree with you. But what I want to share with you, to our listeners, is that by far the most important component of that powerful communication is the audience. And so we're going to take the time to spend our time on that component of the three pillars today. Maybe we'll come back and share some of the other two, you know, but the messenger, first of all, is about how we look. So it's a physical impression. It's about vocal impression also, like how we speak. Do we have what tone, what pitch? Do we pause? How fast? So those things are impacting. And also a big part of that is first impression, right? So those are a little bit about what the messenger is about. Obviously, the message, you know, we suggest having a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And you know, you're going to try and have in the beginning help people to understand why they should listen. In the middle, you're going to share what they need to do, what they need to learn. What they need to learn, and then in the end, what action do they need to take? What do they need to do next? So you do want to structure your message, and there are things that we can dive in there to share a little bit more about that. But I just want to give you the quick overview before we then dive into the audience. You know, the audience part of it is, I think a lot of people don't answer as the audience being number one. I remember, Neal, I've shared this story with you, and so I will just give you the quick overview of it. I got some really good, honest feedback from Edna when she said, "Do you realize every time you come to pick me up, you're late?" And my first response was, "You know, I'm late. I'm taking care of business for us, you know, for the family. I'm not just twiddling my thumbs." But then I stopped because that look on her face and that tone of her voice, and I stopped. But when I stopped to really think about it, I realized that I wasn't late because I wanted to just be late. I was late because I wasn't thinking about what mattered most, and that was Edna. And so it helped me in terms of communication. Communication really is all about the audience. It's not what I want to say, but it's what they need to hear. It's not what I want to say. You know, there is a quote by renowned speaking coach Patricia Fripp, and she said, "It is not about what you want to say. It is about what your audience needs to hear." And so the best communicators aren't focused on what they want to say. They're focused on what their audience needs to hear. Neal, your thought on that, first of all?
Well, for us to sit here and talk about the audience being the most important, I know that our audience is saying, well, I agree with it for Neal and Robin, but we don't think about this for ourselves. Many of us, we never even share many of our messages because we can't get past the messenger ourselves or the message. And we're trying to perfect those two parts, not knowing or not even understanding that if we don't think about the audience first, if we don't go into it looking at it from their viewpoint, why should they listen? What are they going to learn? What should they do when we're done? Right? Why should they even care? Right? And I think that especially today is so easy for us to focus on us and what we want to get out to the world, not necessarily what the world, our audience, needs at the time from us in what way. And so I think that it requires a high level of awareness and humility for the speaker, for the presenter, for the person to say, it really isn't about me. It is all about what you need, how I can help you accomplish or help you learn or help you get closer to your goal. And that's a very mature place to be, especially if you're taking this thing called communication seriously.
Yeah, and I think what happens for a lot of us, I can think of myself too when I look back, is that we're too busy thinking about how we're going to look. We're too busy thinking about, how is it going to be received? We're trying to impress people. You know, that's kind of where we put our focus. And so here, that's wanting to sound good say something that is meaningful to the people that you're sharing with is not a bad thing. But when we're only focused on that, what happens is we will not get what we want. That's the reality. And so I think that's a part of what all causes us to not, focus on what might seem so obvious when Neal and I say it to you today, right? It might seem so obvious. When I heard you say it, Neal, I'm like, how could we think otherwise? And I think that's a part of it. We're too busy thinking about ourselves and how we're going to look and what we're going to say. I have one more statistics that I found here I want to share, Neal. It's by Carmine Gallo, who has done analysis of hundreds of TED Talks. And Carmine found that the most popular presentations consist of 65% connecting with the audience. So the TED Talks that do well, it's all about audience connection. And so, folks, what we're saying to you here today is that it is all about the audience. It is all about the audience. Your goal as you present, as you do whichever, an interview, if you are making a presentation, if you're just connecting with somebody on a one-to-one basis, this holds true that your primary objective is not to impress the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural for us to want to do that. But your number one thing to do when you are communicating is to find common ground. You want to connect with your audience. John Maxwell has probably become famous for talking about this one, Neal. It's about finding common ground. The best way to connect is to connect on common ground. So it means that you're wanting your audience to feel like we are similar.
Mm-hmm.
We are in this together. In some way, we have something in common. Right, sir?
Absolutely. And I think that, one, that requires work on the part of the speaker, the presenter, the communicator, right? And it requires us to move closer to the audience. And I'm not talking about in physical proximity, but emotionally. Are you mature enough? Are you comfortable enough? Instead of asking them to come closer to you and expect them to stretch, are you willing to maybe come down to their level? Are you willing to be vulnerable or caring enough to say, let me meet you where you are, right? So we don't, and here's the beauty, that talks about, or that goes into the vocabulary that you're going to use, the examples that you're going to use. I love the fact, and I can't talk about the audience being the most important part and not talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and the way that he spoke to audiences. When he was with fishermen, he spoke about fishing. When he was with farmers, he talked about reaping and sowing and farming analogies and parables. So for us, we really do see who I believe the greatest man to ever walk this planet, if he said, here's my model for communication. Let me slow down, walk slowly through the crowd. Let me answer the questions that I know they have burning inside of here. Let me speak in a way that it really is all about the audience. Then why wouldn't I model that out myself as well?
That's so true. I love that. And so one of the first things that you want to do if you follow what we're talking about here is you have to prepare well. And so we have 5 questions here. It's an audience impact formula that we're sharing with you here that are 5 questions that we want you to ask before you do any sort of presentation. And so the first one is, who are they? Who are they? I'm going to run through them, and then Neal will walk through each of them a little bit here in a moment. But who are they? What do they already know? What frustrations do they have? What objections might exist? So you're thinking about that ahead of time. And what do they need to walk away with? What do they need to walk away with? So those are the 5 questions. And so, but how do you find out the answers to some of these questions? So, Neal, you can share, like, the first one, who are they? I think doing research on your audience. You want to find out who is in the room. You want to find out as much as possible about them, their age, their gender, their interests, their roles, their positions, their background, their cultural background. You want to find out as much as you can. And so if it's a new audience to you, you're going to probably have to go to like LinkedIn or some other these other things online somewhere. You're going to go online. You're going to interview people that you're going to go present to and ask them these questions. You're doing everything you can to try and find out all that you can about these people. Neal, any thoughts there or stories to share?
On this one, I think so. You mentioned these 5 questions, and the beauty is we know that we're supposed to ask questions. Instead of asking these questions, we would just assume that we know the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be too smart. Ask the questions, right? And you might have to ask whether it's going to be via research, but you might have to ask a person. You might have to ask by doing, going in, looking at LinkedIn or doing, but ask the questions. What we don't want is for you to go into an environment, into an opportunity, never having asked the questions, but answered with assumptions.
Yes,
And I just believe that going in and doing the prep work, as you talk about, Robin, on the front end is going to make everything easier and it's going to make your presentation better. Simply because once you know who you're talking to and you've done that research, it then lends to that confidence because preparation is confidence. Now I'm a little more sure of myself and not in an egotistical way, but I'm a little more sure of myself being able to give the people what they need because now I know who they are.
And I remember reading in one of John Maxwell's books. I don't remember, don't ask me which book it is, but he told a story, and I don't have all the details here, but here the important parts. This person, I don't remember her name. She's the one who created the Aflac duck a marketing thing that they have, Aflac, right? This is the lady who created that. And she was struggling to get a meeting with some big CEO of a company. And she found out that this person likes Diet Coke. And so when she went to the meeting that was only going to be like a 5-minute, 10-minute meeting, she brought a Diet Coke. And what was supposed to be a 5-10-minute meeting ended up being over an hour long. This gentleman was so impressed and connected with her, taking the time to do that, find out about him and bring something that he liked, that he gave her so much more time. That's just a simple little example of when we find out these things ahead of time, we can then have a way that we can connect with people. The next one is identify their needs and expectations. Why are they here? What problems are they facing? Maybe it's like there's so many different industry and professions represented by our listeners. I won't go into specifics, but the point is that what are they facing? What challenges are they having? What expectations do they have? And how can your presentation help them? So you're finding out what their needs are and their expectations are, and you're designing your presentation to help them, right? So that's a way of connecting with your audience. Number 3, gauge their knowledge level. Neal talked about this earlier, Neal. So what we want to be careful of is not to just be talking above people or below people, right? So find out where they are, especially in relations to their familiarity with whatever topic it is that you're going to be speaking on. Find out where their level of, understanding is, and then try to avoid that confusing or, speaking above or speaking below somebody. Neal, you spoke a little bit about that. You want to add?
Well, that's one of the things I believe is the most attractive to an event organizer, someone who's going to bring you in to speak, to lead the conversation. Because if they can trust you with their people, knowing that you're going to give them what they need, meaning an understanding level that you can meet them where they are, I think that's going to be key. And here's where you can immediately make yourself more valuable. Be able to talk at a very high level or at a very basic level. Know your stuff, prepare, right? So that when the time comes, if you have to keep it here in the middle, that works for the majority of people, great. But if after your presentation, if after your talk, someone comes in, hey, could you break that down a little bit for me? Absolutely, I can do that. Well, I would like to have a conversation with you on a deeper level. And then you go at a really high level. I think that if you can figure that out on the front end, it really does put you in the right place with the entire audience, where they will say, okay, this is a very smart individual, but they're so smart that they made it simple, or they're so smart that if I needed to have a conversation with them about deeper things, they could point me in the right direction. So meeting people where they are at their level of understanding is absolutely key, because here's the reality. None of us want to talk to someone or listen to someone who makes us feel dumb.
Right.
Period.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Or we don't want to separate. Like if sometimes you can speak so eloquently that you separate yourself that way too. Not eloquent, that's not the right word, but like you're using words that are like, way above. Most people don't know and most people don't use those words. Even although it might be impressive, what you're doing is you're creating a gap rather than, finding common ground. So that's so good, Neal. The other one is to anticipate potential objections or concerns. So you're anticipating that ahead of time. Will they have any objections or concerns regarding the message or the messenger? And then prepare for that in advance. And so you're thinking about the audience with that. During your talks or presentations or whatever, try to make it as interactive as possible. Like even if you're just talking one-on-one with somebody, ask questions to make sure they're understanding you. Allow them to share ideas, right? If you're talking to an audience, you can have some sort of activities. You can do polls these days. You can use polls where you can do it via the phone, their phone now. They can answer questions real time, and you're getting interaction. And so you're inviting your audience to join you. The last two that we'll mention here is to arrive early. And so if you're presenting somewhere, you want to own the room. Take care of your tech stuff, sit in the room where they're going to be sitting, like become familiar with all of that and get your tech stuff out of the way. And then the last one is as you arrive early, you want to connect with people there. Neal, I know you're good at this. So you're chatting with people that are there early and you're getting to know them. And sometimes you can even use some of the conversation that you've had with those people as a part of your talk.
Yeah. And so, Robin, that's the key for me, because many times I am the new person in the room. And so I might be the keynote or the speaker, but they don't know me. But if I can talk about John, or Nancy is there and everyone knows John or Nancy, I say, man, this morning John and I were having a great conversation. Or as Nancy was coming in, I was walking with her and here's what we talked about. All of a sudden, I'm borrowing credibility from them, but I'm also letting them know that I am with them. And I know we say that we're right there with you, but I am with them. I'm at their level. I understand. I know the decision makers. I know the feel or the pulse of the room, because I've had conversations with the room, even if it's just one person. And so that closes the gap. And so I always encourage all of my clients who I'm working with in presenting communication. Our goal is to close the gap as much as we can. And a lot of times that requires us to move more than the audience. But if I can close the gap from getting there early, maybe help set some things up, asking questions of the individuals who are there, who do I need to know? Is there someone that you really suggest that I connect with before I get on the platform? Those are the types of things that are small in what it requires of us, but they have a profound impact on the audience and their experience, Robin.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing from a pro at it there. And so I couldn't agree more. And, there John Maxwell, who's our mentor, perhaps a lot of you on this call listening to us today, you're one of his fans as well. He's known for saying what I'm about to say right now. He's saying that every audience is asking three things. And those three things are, can you help me? Do you care about me? And can I trust you? Can you help me? Do you care about me? And can I trust you? And that's what we're talking about essentially. I think he boils it down. If the answer to those three questions are yes, then people are going to listen and allow us to lead them with whatever message it is that we're sharing. But if the answer is no, hear us on this. It doesn't matter how impressive you are. It doesn't matter how good your content is. If the answer is no to those three questions, you're not going to be anywhere near as effective. In fact, a lot of times they'll just tune you out. And so, Neal, like I'm gonna put you on the spot with this. We didn't practice or talk about this or anything beforehand. But do you have any like connection examples that you can use? Like maybe you knocked it out of the park when you communicated and connected with a group or a presentation or whatever that might look like for you, sir.
So for me, it happens on a weekly basis, and it happens in the kids ministry at church. And so here's where every weekend we have kids who come into, so families who come into our environment, and the kid is unsure, right? It's their first time. They don't want to come into this strange place. The parents want their kids to go to the kids area, the kids ministry in church, but they also don't feel like fighting with the kids. So now they're saying, how much do I push them to go in here versus just giving them the iPad and sitting in big church, adult church? And so on a weekly basis, I get to communicate with adults and 5 to 8-year-olds and have in one conversation a level of communication with the 5-year-old and with the adults. So the kid trusts me so that they're willing to let their parents' hand go grab my hand, but also the parents trust me. Right. And so to be able to do that for me on a weekly basis that's where my most practice comes in. If I can talk to a 5-year-old and then in the same breath have a conversation with an adult, reassure them that the kid's going to be taken care of and safe, reassure the kid that they're going to have fun, let the parents know they're going to learn about Jesus. Kids, we're going to have fun. You're going to want to come back next week. We're going to do some things. So that's what gives me the most pride, knowing that I have become a student. I've anticipated the objections. I know what the benefit is for the kid and for the parent. And then the goal is always thinking about the audience. What do I need to say so that kid comes with me? What do I need to say so that parent feels comfortable? And when they come back, they're saying, how was it? And I'm calling the kid on the microphone that, hey, it's time to go. And they're like, already? I'm like, yes, already. Right. And so for me, it really is, because I could say, hey, you have to come in here because your parents don't want you in big church. But the kid, like, that's not thinking about the audience. The 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, I could tell the parents, hey, we've done this with thousands of kids. You've got to trust me. Let me just grab the kid. Like, I'm not thinking about the audience. Now, I know what's best for them, but is it packaged and delivered in a way that they can digest it, that they can say, all right, I feel good about the decision. I think this is the right thing to do. But it goes back to Dr. Maxwell's 3 questions, right? And so, can you help me? Do you care about me? Can I trust you? Right? And I think that, Robin, the challenge is we get so focused on everything else, we forget to ask those questions because we aren't in the audience's seat. We have to sit in the audience's seat and really ask those questions and answer them honestly.
Right on. Well done. Well said, sir. The other part of it that I want our listeners to catch is that he's doing this every week. So he's developing this skill every week.
Robin, on that, and I will say, I've been on some amazing stages and platforms, but I've learned the most when I'm in a room with 30 or 40 kindergarten through 3rd grade or through 5th grade kids and having to adapt. And you talk about anticipating issues and preparation, because the hardest thing I have to do every week is to stand in front of a kindergartner who's trying to decide, do I pay attention to you or do I do a cartwheel? Right? So at least adults will pretend to pay attention, or we'll at least just be still and check our phone. A kindergartner saying, Mr. Neal, you're boring. I'm about to do a cartwheel. Mr. Neal, you're boring. I'm just going to look up in the air. And so the preparation there, and this would be one of the toughest learning environments, right? Like, if you're going to practicing with kids is just a tough place for me and my ego, because no matter what I talk about, no matter how many people were on or at an event that I spoke at a week prior, the kids do not care. I can speak in front of 3,500. Mr. Neal, we don't care anything about that. Can you hold my attention for 13 minutes today? I know you did an hour in Atlantic City. Can you hold my attention for 13 minutes here in Cooper City? If the answer is no, I'm not coming back next week. That's pressure, sir.
Yeah. Wow. So a couple of things come to my mind, like, hey, volunteer at the kids ministry at church. Maybe that's what we should be telling our listeners to do. Number one, but then number two, on a more serious note, Neil, like I think about the impact that you're making in those kids' lives too. Like most of us can look back in our lives and it's somebody like you in our lives that's actually made an impact that made us who we are today. And so that's such a beautiful thing when you think about what we're talking about and communication. Yes. Yeah, Neil, please.
So on that, this is why I said, remember, we started out early. It used to be the messenger, where I wanted to do this thing for me and have my name in the lights. And I will say that me being in the kids ministry has shifted everything about why I present, how I present. And when you talk about the audience and coming from their point of view. So I dress for my audience at my church, and so we're there and I will be meeting with the prayer partners and the pastors in one moment, but I'm in shorts and mismatched socks. And why? Because I understand the audience and what it's going to take for them to receive me. And that's when I understood the audience, the message, and yes, the messenger just good enough to be willing to make sure that the audience receives the message. And so as much as I have impacted them in their lives, the impact that because to have the trust and the attention of people, and ladies and gentlemen, for someone to give us the privilege of their time and their attention, I think that is one of the greatest votes of confidence. When someone can give you their time and their attention, don't take that for granted and don't abuse that. And so they've had a greater impact on me because I am a different man. I'm a different presenter. I'm a different speaker because kids continue to give me their attention and their time, Rob.
I love it. Thank you, sir. That's what it's all about. Roddy Galbraith said something along those lines. I'm trying to remember it now. It's like he was talking about the fact that like you're not taking your time to speak. You're borrowing their time. It's like what you just said, and it's a reminder that that's true. No matter what place you're in, what setting you're in with the kids, or in the boardroom, or in the ballroom, you're borrowing their time. And so you want to be prepared and you want to cut out the stuff that's not necessary. You want to communicate clearly and you want to communicate in a way where it's going to be meaningful to them. So a quick little recap of what we talked about here. We talked about Aristotle's three pillars: the messenger, the message, and the audience. And then we kind of honed in on the audience and we talked about the 5 questions that you want to ask so that you can be best prepared for any sort of presentation that you have, and how you can go about getting the answers to them. And we just want to encourage you. I want to encourage you with this guy that, didn't have it together at all. Right? I grew up being called names, Stumbo, King Tubby, with family and friends, and that affected my life. And so I wasn't that guy that was into public speaking. And yet you look at me now and recognize that all of us can develop and become communicators. And it's just a matter of taking the steps, starting where you are and recognizing that it's not about, being born with it. It's about developing it and building it and developing that skill like you would any other. That's my
Robin,
encouragement to you.
I want to say thank you, sir, for developing the skill, because I know you've had a profound impact on me and we together are doing this thing. And I know that we could always talk about doing a thing, but when you walk and you live it out and you lead by example and we share like the challenges that we've had and how we overcame them, and even some of the principles and the practices that we have used to become who we are today. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not want you all to miss that, right? So you had Robin, who was over here on the reserved side. You had me over here outgoing, but both of us had to work and we both had to practice and hone our skills. Now, the practice and the honing looked different. And so I'm going to encourage you, figure out where you are on the journey. Figure out if you need to change the focus from you to the audience, or if you just need to have the confidence through preparation, because your focus is the audience and you understand that, but maybe your lack is in the preparation, so you don't have the confidence, right? And so that's why we are always humbled that you hang out here with us on the Big Life Podcast, that you would even give us the opportunity or the privilege of your time. Just know that we do not take that lightly. And so we handle your time. We handle the opportunities that you all give us with kid gloves. We hold it very near to our hearts.
We sure do. And there are a couple of things I'd like to share regarding that. One of that is that to remember that just like Neal shared how he's been able to make an impact and is making an impact in kids' lives and also parents, but in kids' lives, that's what we want to encourage you with today as we wind this down, is that you're the hero for your family. You're the hero for your company. We are encouraging you to be that hero. And so when you can communicate in such a way that your client, your family member, whoever, fill in that blank, your kids at church, understand, when you help them to understand, or you help them to make a decision, or you help them to say yes to doing something that's going to be a positive thing in their life, you're the hero. And that's what we're encouraging today, because we need you. You know, that's one of the things Neal and I always talk about on the show. We do this for you, right? Because we believe that there's nobody else like you. There's only one of you. And if we don't get you, the world misses out.
Yeah.
And so you need to do the work needed so that the world can experience that. That's what this is all about. And the last thing I would say that Neal alluded to is that that's one of the reasons why we love to hear from you. And so we encourage you to give some comments, give some feedback, share your thoughts on what we share, ask questions, or share if we've said something that's helped you to break through, share that. In other words, we want to know you. It's a little bit harder for us with a show like this because we're not on the phone with you. We're not face to face. We're kind of speaking and you're listening wherever you are now. You know, maybe you're in the car, or maybe you're in the gym, or maybe you're walking on the street, or whatever it is, sitting in your chair. We don't know where you are right now listening to us. And so any sort of feedback that we can get from you, any sort of communication we can get from you is extremely helpful and helps us to serve you that much better as well. So Neal, you take it from here, sir.
Robin, I see what you did right there. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is Robin doing his research, our research, so we know who our audience is, so we know the things that are challenging you all, also knowing where you are, development level, education level, understanding what you need from us, because we do take this serious. And so what I'm going to ask is, in addition to the comments, share this podcast, whether the entire show or this episode here, with someone that you care about, someone that you believe would benefit from improving their communication, or someone that you need to communicate more clearly with, and say, hey, I am making an effort. This is my attempt at improving myself so that I can communicate a little bit better. And you, as my audience, are my priority. I think they would appreciate that. And it would be a show, an act of respect, love, and kindness. So we are going to leave you as we always do. And that is with the reminder that we love you. God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time we see you or you see us, we're right there with you. Peace.
Peace.